Hi everyone. So today's video is going to be about Captain Marvel and how I hate her and how she's weirdly enough the perfect flagship character for new Marvel. So Marvel through most of its history has had Spider-Man as its flagship character. That was its first really big hit character, and he was just a very good representative for the Marvel universe. He had that lower power level that a lot of Marvel heroes are known for. He had the, the put-upon schmuck type personality that Stan Lee kind of invented for superheroes. He was very personable. He was very friendly. He's a very much of an entry-level superhero. There's actually a lot of complexity to him, but you get him right away. His name is Spider-Man. He sticks to a wall. He's got webs on his costume. Like, you get it. And then once people find out the Peter Parker personality, if you don't know that guy, you probably are that guy. Very identifiable, a great flagship character. And he remained a flagship character from the 60s until about 10 years ago. And then they kind of were casting about, they kind of almost were making Wolverine the flagship, I think because of the success of the X-Men movies. And then, for whatever reason, about 5 years ago, they decided, scratch all that noise, our 400, I was going to say she's like the 400th most popular character. No, she's way our 1245th most popular character. That's our new flagship character. So they decided that Carol Danvers was going to be Captain Marvel again, and she wasn't just going to be Captain Marvel, she was effectively going to be the flagship character for Marvel. She's everywhere. She's everywhere except for the top of the sales charts. Like, she's the lead in their big, Civil War II, coordinated with the Civil War movie. She's, she's so popular she gets 5 series because first 4 keep getting canceled for low sales. But they just keep bringing her back. She gets mentioned in everything. She's on every poster. She's right there in their face. And that's both the problem with her, but that's also the problem with modern Marvel. She is being forced upon the reader. They've basically thrown out everything they've done for 50 years. And I made this comment in an earlier video, and people kind of laughed good-naturedly, but if you go read the editorials, if you go read Marvel Age, if you go read any interview ever, this is how Marvel, for the first 50-plus years of its existence, geez, way more than that, from like the 60s until about 10 years ago, this is how they pushed everything forward. They said, hey, we got this crazy idea. We really hope you like it. And if you don't like it, we'll change it back. And they did it kind of tongue-in-cheek. They did a umpteen variations of that, but they did that. New Marvel, SJW Marvel, the bad Marvel that has average sales of like 20 to 25,000 per issue. Their new thing is, we are doing something whether you like it or not. We really would almost like it if you didn't like it because we absolutely hate you fans. By the way, if you don't buy the book, we're just going to keep relaunching it. And maybe we might switch out the writer, we might switch out the artist, but you're going to keep getting it. Captain Marvel is on like her 5th incarnation, and that's not an exception. Squirrel Girl keeps getting relaunched. They even had this Hela character that nobody bought, and kind of like unofficially she got like 3 relaunches. And these aren't like with some time and then like a new writer coming up with a really great idea. It's basically every year there's going to be some kind of new relaunch. So to discuss Captain Marvel is kind of easy because like there's not much there. She started in the 70s as she was, the funny thing is that Marvel's congratulating for stuff that they did 40 years ago. So they're like, oh, we got female heroes. Well, Captain Marvel, who was Ms. Marvel, she had her own series in the 1970s, and it was very much presented as, hey, look, we have a female hero. That's a big deal. Her sales were okay-ish. The character was okay-ish. The main reason that she was remembered for at all was because this is one of Chris Claremont's early Marvel gigs. So he always held this affection for Carol Danvers, and he kept bringing her back in kind of odd ways. For like decades, she was like a subconscious soul trapped inside of Rogue, who could very, very rarely, communicate with Rogue's regular personality. So Rogue had touched her and touched her too long and like sucked in her powers permanently. So Rogue's powers are stealing powers, but people always think about her as being invulnerable and be able to fly and being able super strong. Well, she stole that from Captain Marvel. Her personality, she didn't. Captain Marvel in the 70s and 80s, she had kind of a, I don't know, like just kind of like a TV, like a Charlie's Angel type of personality. She was kind of like bubbly. She could get strident at times, but she was very much of a girl next door. So she kind of went, she went away when her series didn't go that well. She stayed around just because Chris Claremont had some personal affection for her related to his career. And then she came back. And she came back as some weirdly angry, super serious, hyper masculine, humorless character that not only is just a bad character, but doesn't really fit Marvel at all. If you think about it, Marvel is really centered around humor. Every character that's popular tends to have some kind of sense of humor. Even guys like the Punisher, if you look at him, he's got a lot of like Arnold and Stallone style quips. But you also, if you get into stuff, especially like the Mike Baron guy, this was a guy who was a very like well-rounded guy with a lot of interests. He had kind of like a little, gallows humor. But I mean, there is no humor with Captain Marvel. She's bad, and she's bad on several different ways. Number one is just that she's very generic. Captain Marvel Captain Marvel sounds like the fake superheroes that they would mention in like sitcoms in like the 1980s. They were always Captain and then like the word stupendous. So then you get into her, you go, okay, yeah, her name's pretty generic. What are her powers? And her powers are very generic. I always describe Captain Marvel as the generic superhero they have on the side of plumber vans, or like in a brochure about like preventing gingivitis by flossing. Just like bright colors, generic name, strong and can fly, and that's it. That's all we came up with. So they decided to gin this really lame character by making her, in addition, super serious, arrogant, and completely humorless, and just miserable. And then the weird thing is that she's kind of like I describe her as being like a pseudo-lesbian. Like, it actually would have given her more personality if they would have pulled the trigger and just made her that. So I think she's just been portrayed as straight, but she's hyper masculine. They have to give her these like very square jaw, stern face, aggressive and domineering. But then they do this weird thing where anytime she ever meets a female character, she's like, girlfriend. And I talked about that, where it's like they're trying to say this is more elevated, but it's very infantilizing towards female readers and female characters, the way they put these things forward. So it used to drive me nuts that they made her the flagship character, because I hate her to the weird extent. I hate her so much, I'll actually make a YouTube video about why I hate her. Oh. But no, actually, this is more about Marvel and this weird mindset they've got, where Marvel has decided the customer is always wrong unless they quietly agree with them. We see this with how Tom Brevoort interacts with everyone. We see this how Nick Spencer and Axel Alonso. It is all very much shut up and buy it. We got Disney money. We don't care what you think. But as I showed in my video yesterday, sales are getting crazy low. We're talking about Marvel Comics selling less than 10,000 on issue 4. We're talking about a flagship character selling less than 20,000. This is, and I brought this up yesterday, this is effectively no sales, because you're talking about a number that is so low, and these are sales to stores, not sales to customers. When a store buys a comic, they can't return it. That's why quarter bins exist. That's why I think that's where Free Comic Book Day came from. They were giving away all the issues of Squirrel Girl that they couldn't sell for the whole year. So you look at this thing of a character who is never... that's the other thing. Not only is Marvel deciding you will like this character and we're going to keep pushing them until you do, they're not even going to adjust the character. So they've decided that she's not like a Charlie's Angels type girl next door. Okay, fine. So they decided to make her absolutely miserable, hyper-masculine, militaristic, haughty, proud. Not a fun character ever. I mean, when you read her in Civil War II, they keep pumping her up, but I was like, I think the guy writing this hates her too, because she was making the wrong decision every time, attacking people for, attack first, and just the worst character. She was the obvious villain of it. And yet they tried to spin a new series where it's like, she's having a tough time. Well, yeah. When, actions have consequences. She brought all this on herself, but she's not interesting. So you need to, so if they got in their head that because of the movie, because of a edict from corporate, that they have to make her the flagship, you could at least course correct and see at the 5 series you've had to reboot in the last 6 or 7 years that the way you're portraying her is not good. So, like I said, she's a generic superhero off the side of a plumber van. Give her a better personality. Give her, all you have to do is copy the things that have been very successful. Have her, don't stop making her like some weird like Brigitte Nielsen type. Have her be a Jennifer Aniston type. Have her be a girl next door who's really smart, but she's got some flaws. That would match literally every successful Marvel character. We're talking, even things about like Steve Rogers, where, he's kind of perfect, morally and physically and all that other things. Well, he has this kind of deep, abiding sadness that he's always out of sorts. Give her something like that. I mean, I'm reading these Chris Claremont X-Men from the 80s and 90s, and man, he will just throw everything in the kitchen sink. And they're not, so you might have to have a year where you just do a whole bunch of things, find out, give her some new personality, give her this really, tragic backstory, get her close to someone, and, Chris Claremont would have them stuck in another dimension as an alternate shadow version. Something. You got to give her something. You're giving her nothing, then you're giving us nothing, and then you keep giving us nothing. And imagine a slogan, imagine on a bag of chips that says, nothing, now with 10% more nothing to it. I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, it's very clear they're not going to get rid of her. So give her something that will like her, because you're effectively at 0 sales. You're effectively at pity buys by shop owners who feel like they have to buy her because she's the flagship character. It's weird, she's on every poster. She's the star of the big series, and you can't sell 20,000 copies. So actually, this one went a bit longer than I thought. I've had some trouble with the pictures. I was getting a little bit more fancy with the pictures, and then for some reason on this little Power Director app, it's only letting me put one picture at a time. So I was like, eh. So, so in the comments, tell me if you... So this is what I do with YouTube videos. I just listen to them. And I've noticed the ones that I spend more time on and make them more visually interesting doesn't help at all. So tell me, do you just listen to these videos? Do you look at them? Do you like things that are more visually appealing? Or is this like a niche where I should just stick with this one picture? So go ahead and subscribe, share the video, and I'll have another video up tomorrow.